It was a quiet Saturday morning, and I had just finished my coffee when the phone rang. It was Jack, my grandson. He called often, usually to check on me or to tell me about his college classes. But this time, his tone was different. "Hey, Grandma," he started. "I've got a favor to ask. My buddy Kevin is in town, and he's looking to make a little extra cash. I know I promised to mow your lawn this week, but I've got this group project." I sighed. Jack was always reliable, but I knew how busy he could get. "It's fine, Jack. If your friend doesn't mind, I could use the help." "Thanks, Grandma. Kevin's a great guy. You'll like him," he said, his voice light with relief. Half an hour later, a car pulled into my driveway, and out stepped a young man in his early 20s. He was tall, with messy brown hair and a confident stride. He carried himself with the ease of someone who knew his way around people. "Mrs. Myers," he called out as I opened the door. "That's me. You must be Kevin," I replied. He flashed a grin. "Jack talks about you all the time. Said you're the coolest grandma ever." I laughed. "Well, I'm not sure about that, but come on in." The lawn mower's in the shed out back. Kevin followed me to the backyard, his casual confidence almost disarming. As he started up the mower, I watched from the kitchen window, sipping another cup of coffee. He worked with surprising efficiency, moving across the yard with ease. For someone Jack's age, he seemed unusually sure of himself. When he paused to wipe his forehead, he caught me looking. He waved, and I felt an odd flutter in my stomach. I waved back quickly and busied myself with the dishes. It had been a long time since someone that young, or that charming, had been in my yard. After finishing the lawn, Kevin knocked on the back door. "All done," he announced, his grin still firmly in place. "Do you mind if I grab some water?"
"Not at all," I said, gesturing toward the fridge. "There's bottled water in there. Or lemonade, if you'd prefer." "Lemonade sounds great," he said, pulling out a bottle and sitting down at the kitchen table without waiting for an invitation. I joined him, setting my coffee cup down. "So, Kevin, where are you from?" "Originally?" "Oregon," he said. "But I've been moving around a lot. Just trying to figure things out, you know?" I nodded. "That's normal at your age. It's good that you're helping Jack out, though. He's lucky to have a friend like you." Kevin's grin softened. "Jack's a good guy. But he didn't tell me his grandma was this cool." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't help smiling. "You're laying it on thick, aren't you?" "Just being honest," he said, leaning back in his chair. There was something disarming about him, a mix of charm and genuine warmth that I hadn't encountered in years. I found myself laughing at his jokes, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. For a moment, I forgot about the years between us and just enjoyed the conversation. Kevin leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table as he took another sip of lemonade. "You've got a nice place here," he said, glancing toward the backyard. "Quiet. Peaceful. Bet it's great for thinking." I smiled. "It is. I spend a lot of time out there. It's my little escape from the world." "Wish I had something like that," he admitted, a wistful note in his voice. "Feels like I'm always on the move, never really settling anywhere." I studied him for a moment. There was something behind his words, a hint of vulnerability that didn't quite match the confident young man who had walked into my backyard earlier. "You're still young," I said gently. "You've got time to figure things out." Kevin's eyes met mine, and for a moment, the air between us felt charged. I looked away, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting.
"You're right," he said, breaking the silence. "But it's not always easy to believe that." I nodded, unsure of what to say. There was an intensity to his gaze that made me feel both flattered and unsettled. I stood up, breaking the moment. "Would you like another glass?" "Sure," he said, leaning back with a small smile. As I poured the lemonade, I could feel his eyes on me. It was a strange sensation, unfamiliar but not entirely unwelcome. When I turned back to the table, he was still watching me, his expression unreadable.
The afternoon sun had started to dip lower, casting long shadows across the backyard. Kevin stood up, stretching his arms over his head. Thanks for the lemonade, he said. And for letting me hang out for a bit. It's been nice. It's been nice for me, too, I admitted. The words slipped out before I could stop them, but I didn't regret saying them. It had been nice. Refreshing, even. Kevin lingered by the back door. If you need help with anything else around the house, just let me know. Jack's got my number. I hesitated. Well, there are a few things. The gutters could use cleaning, and the garage door sticks sometimes. Say no more. I'll take care of it, he said, flashing that easy grin again. You don't have to go out of your way, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure I meant it. I don't mind, he replied. It's nice to feel useful. That evening, after Kevin left, I sat on the couch, staring out the window. The house felt quiet again, but different this time. There was a new energy lingering, one that I couldn't quite name. I told myself it was nothing, just the buzz of having company for the afternoon. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Kevin returned the following weekend, just as he'd promised. I'd spent the week wondering if he would actually show up, and when I saw his car pull into the driveway, a strange mix of excitement and apprehension settled over me. Good morning, Mrs. Myers, he called out cheerfully as he got out of the car. Ready for me to tackle those gutters? Call me Sarah, I said, surprising even myself. And yes, I'm ready. Kevin's smile widened. Sarah it is. I handed him the ladder, and he got to work quickly. From the kitchen window, I watched him climb with ease, his movements fluid and assured. He was humming a tune, something upbeat and catchy. There was an ease to him that I envied. When he finished, he came back inside, wiping his hands on a rag. All set. Anything else? I hesitated, then gestured toward the garage. The door still sticks. If you have time. Of course, he said, following me to the garage. We worked side by side this time, him explaining what he was doing while I held tools or fetched whatever he needed. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the occasional teasing remark. At one point, he paused, looking at me with a curious expression. You're different than I expected, he said. Different how? I asked, my heart skipping a beat. I don't know, he said thoughtfully. You're just easy to be around. Comfortable. Most people aren't like that. I felt a blush creeping up my neck. Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one, he said, his voice soft. The moment hung between us, heavy with unspoken words. I broke the tension by pointing out a loose bolt, and we returned to the task at hand. But the shift had happened, subtle yet undeniable. Things between us were no longer just casual. They were something more. A week later, Kevin showed up again, this time unannounced. I had just finished sweeping the porch when I saw his car pull in. My heart skipped a beat, a mix of surprise and anticipation. Hope I'm not interrupting, he said as he got out, holding a bag of groceries. Thought I'd bring over some things for dinner. You've done enough hosting. I blinked, caught off guard. That's very thoughtful of you. But you didn't have to. I wanted to, he said simply, walking past me into the house as if he'd always belonged there. We spent the afternoon cooking together. Kevin took charge, chopping vegetables and seasoning meat with a confidence that made me smile. I set the table, feeling more like a guest than the host in my own home. The air between us felt lighter, yet there was an undercurrent of something unspoken, something that neither of us acknowledged, but both seemed to feel. Over dinner, the conversation turned personal. Kevin opened up about his family, his struggles, and his dreams. I listened, captivated by his honesty and vulnerability. In turn, I shared pieces of my own story, things I hadn't spoken about in years. As the evening wore on, the space between us seemed to shrink. After dinner, we moved to the living room, the conversation slowing until it was replaced by a comfortable silence. Kevin sat close, his arm resting on the back of the couch, his fingers just grazing my shoulder. Sarah, he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to face him, my breath catching as I met his gaze. There was no mistaking the look in his eyes. It was a moment suspended in time, a crossroads where everything could change. When he leaned in, I didn't pull away.